If you've been looking for an effective way to differentiate yourself from all the competition and all the noise out there today, then stay tuned for today's episode of The Meaningful Show, because you're gonna learn a simple strategy that you can start implementing today. It's gonna help you differentiate yourself from the competition and rise above the noise as well. So stay tuned, because that is up next. So my wife and I just got back from Mexico. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary out there, and I want to tell you a quick story about what an interesting experience I had as far as selling goes when we were out there. We usually like to go and pick up, souvenirs from the different places that we go and travel and visit and stuff like that. And in this particular situation, we went to a city called Bufadora in Mexico, and we went out to the tourist area out there, and we were looking for different cool little souvenirs, like a magnet or a shot glass or a t-shirt or something like that. And it just blew my mind how ridiculous some of these, salespeople were, the merchants rather, were when we were out there. Because we're walking down and it's like this really long alley, just filled with merchants selling everything from, churros to pina coladas and Viagra. So we're looking for a good little souvenir shop that we can pick up just some magnets or some shot glasses and some gifts and stuff like that for people to bring back. And we are just like bombarded. Like, these guys are just they're not even hanging out in their stores, in their little merchant area. They're like coming out and offering their stuff. Like when you're in the food court at the mall and, they've got that little plate of little samples and they're offering it to you, and they're just like coming at us from every single direction. We literally can't even hold a conversation because it's so freaking ridiculous how many people are just coming at us from both directions, left and right. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. What the heck is going on here? And it was crazy, and super annoying. But I realized something really, really important then. And it was because of what I actually did as a result of, my response to some of these aggressive salesmen. Because usually, the typical conventional advice to people when they're trying to sell stuff is to, yell, 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 call, obviously build relationships and all that stuff. But oftentimes people will say, be aggressive, right? And these guys were definitely aggressive, but they were pissing me off. And I kept on trying to be nice in the beginning, and then eventually it was like, dude, get away. You know what I mean? And so finally we're looking, and I'm like, these freaking guys, I'm not going into a single one of their stores because they're just pissing me off. And finally I spotted this really quiet, well-mannered, like just humble looking, modest merchant on the side. And he had all the souvenirs. He was selling the same stuff that everybody else was selling, but he wasn't being a sleazy jerk like everybody else was on that tourist shop aisle looking area. And so I actually was naturally gravitating towards him. We went to his shop and we bought stuff from him, and we ignored everybody else. And I thought that was really interesting, and I thought about it, and I thought, well, you know what? I wonder when that wouldn't work. What situations would being the quiet person not work? Because in this situation, we were in an environment where everybody was really, really, really aggressive. And because everybody else was acting super aggressive and they were acting the same exact way, it became annoying, it became monotonous, and it repelled my wife and I from actually going to any of their stores. So where we ended up gravitating towards was the quiet merchant, the nice guy that was very, very polite and very, very well-mannered and just had his shop and was selling us his souvenirs. And we bought all of our stuff from him. And this is when I realized how important it is to differentiate yourself based on your environment. And that's the technique I want to share with you right now. It's a technique I call environmental differentiation. Again, that's environmental differentiation. And it's not about just being different, because if you're different for no reason, then it doesn't really make any sense, does it? So it would be a little bit more strategic, right, to differentiate yourself after becoming a little bit more keen, a little bit more aware of what everybody else in your playground is doing. Because in that case, when we were in Bufadora, everybody was yelling at us, and all the merchants were like coming at us from both directions, trying to sell us their churros or their Viagra or their steroids or their pina coladas or magnets or shot glasses or whatever. And it repelled us. But when we spotted the quiet guy who was uniquely quiet within that environment, we actually went to him. Now, flip the coin on that and think about if everybody on that aisle was quiet and you were the one aggressive person to start selling stuff, then it might be a different story, right? More people might actually gravitate to you because you're the only one making noise and kind of, you know, ruffling everyone's feathers and saying, hey, come to me, come to me. You're the flashing light, and everybody else ignores all the quiet people and comes to you because you actually have something to say, something to sell, and you're not afraid to talk about it. So it could easily be flipped in a different environment. And that's why I call it environmental differentiation. So how can you apply environmental differentiation within your own business? Well, a great example of somebody who is applying this technique and applying this technique extremely well is Pat Flynn from the Smart Passive Income blog, smartpassiveincome.com. And, you know, usually when you hear people talking about making money online, making money blogging, passive income, blah, 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 you typically have like lots of, you know, red alerts and like hazard signs start flashing, and it's like, oh my God, stay away. This person is probably lying to me. And that's the stigma about people who help people make money online. And so Pat Flynn looked at this and he was like, you know what? I'm going to be transparent, I'm going to be open, and I'm going to be accessible. He's transparent. He shows all of his income reports right on his website, broken down by exactly which type of income stream is generating the most money and which one generates the least money, and he talks about it. He's extremely accessible. He communicates with all of his subscribers, and he's very, very transparent with everything. So he basically took what the basic stigma around online marketing was, and he completely flipped it around. So how can you use this within your own business? Let me give you 2 ways that you can start implementing this immediately as of today. So the first thing you want to do is to look at your industry and identify what the biggest and most common complaints or misconceptions are. Okay, so for instance, back to Pat Flynn's blog, the biggest misconception or common complaint in the online marketing space was, hey, you know, a lot of these guys are freaking liars, and I don't want to be associated with a liar. And nobody wants to talk to liars. If somebody's making false claims, you don't want to do business with them. There's no integrity there, right? So that was a huge problem in the online marketing space. Pat identified that. He did the complete opposite. So maybe that's an approach that you want to take within your business as well. It's either going to be that, or it's going to be that you have to come up with a completely new approach. But the one thing, whether you are coming up with something new or if you're doing the complete opposite of what everybody else is doing, it always involves solving a problem. So how can you apply the environmental differentiation technique within your own business? Leave me a comment below. Let me know, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this channel and swing on over to meaningfulhq.com and jump on our newsletter list. Until then, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. I'm Dean Bokhari, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Meaningful Show.